Okay, so welcome everyone to our, I think, fourth or fifth online workshop as part of the Bridging Fields programme. We're kindly joined by guest speaker Claire Ottridge today from Grounded Research, which I'm sure many of you have seen and heard about, but if not, Claire, feel free to share your Grounded Research link in the chat so people can look at that as the start of the introduction.
Sure.
So today is not another survey from extraction to collaboration. So we're going to have some hopefully quite interesting and entertaining discussions today. For those of you who this is the first time joining the Bridging Fields programme, I'll do a little bit of an intro and reminder about what it is, why you're here. But for those of you who are seasoned visitors to the programme, welcome back. Sit back and enjoy. So for those of you who don't know me, my name's Lisa. I'm a lecturer at Royal Agricultural University, but coordinating this programme along with Emmanuel Zouza. And we've been able to bring this to you with kind funding from the Rothschild Foundation. So they're really supportive of what's going on in this programme, really want to see academics and researchers supported to deliver on farmer-led innovation and farm-centric ways of working. So we're aiming to train up and support about 200 plus researchers in working effectively with farmers in research and innovation projects. So very broad what we mean by researchers and academics, and broad church when it comes to sort of farmers and growers. And this programme really is for everybody in a UK-based research sort of institutional role, from people starting out in their careers in masters and PhDs right through to seasoned professors, people that do a bit of research on the side in their jobs in other organisations, and those who it's their main bedrock. But we particularly welcome all disciplines and backgrounds. So why farmer-centric and farmer-led research? Well, some of us are really biased about this, but we think it's the right thing to do. Any kind of research where you're, inspiring or supporting change in practice or trying to impact on real-world challenges needs to include those that have an interest, a stake, or an influence in that change. It's the ethical thing to do. But clearly, farmers have a great expertise, great series of ideas that can help increase the relevance and importance and impact of research that we do. One person said to me once when I was doing a PhD, no one knows a farm better than a farmer. So I kind of stick by that in this programme. And the third kind of reason is working with farmers will help you secure funding due to changing requirements from funders and policy. So it seems a bit sort of cutthroat, but policy and funding circles are now going to much more interdisciplinary to transdisciplinary approaches to research, which is where we go beyond just our academic silos and involve stakeholders from wider society, which is, again, like I say, not just the ethical thing to do, but also improves the outcomes from research. And we'll dive into that a bit more today. You would have seen this slide before, many of you, but if you haven't signed up to our mailing list to hear about what's happening when, you can access that on the QR code there. If you're not sure, just sign up again and I'll sort out deduping the lists. But we do quite a lot of little things in this programme, from sort of deep dive residencies. We stay overnight at the Royal Agricultural University and we try and immerse you in current issues in food and farming with a series of field trips and workshops, right through to these more light touch online workshops, where we'll do a series of these going through till next autumn. I would encourage you to check out our Farm PEP repository of resources that we'll be adding to. So these are not just our things, these are papers and resources from lots of different projects to help you collaborate more effectively with farmers and growers. And we've also got a closed LinkedIn group if you're a fan of LinkedIn. So these are RAU residencies. I know we've had a lot of interest in these. We had one last August on sort of soils and regenerative agriculture. So we're trying to sort of cluster them based on what the community would like. And we've got our next one coming up in January. So if you haven't heard from us yet about the January one, sadly, you might not be on the first list, but there's more coming up, don't worry. We'll try and get everyone on at least one at some point. This was August's one. I've like a photo. Excellent bunch of academics, deep dive into soils and regen and hearing from the field. What we're aiming to do is help you feel more confident with collaborating with farmers and growers. A lot of you've asked for building those new networks, building those relationships. So I'll hopefully get you started with that. hope you go away feeling that you can co-design studies with farmers and growers and co-produce knowledge with them that's relevant and impactful, and experience a bit of a mindset shift, particularly if you're new to these sort of things, in how to approach research and innovation. And that's basically what me and Emmanuel went through in our PhDs. So last time, you can access these all on YouTube, but we did one on sort of co-design and engaging farmers in projects, the value of seeking out events and networks outside of sort of project timelines, building those relationships, working with gatekeepers to help you on your way. So we've heard from some gatekeepers already, but going in not knowing always the solutions and embracing that kind of ways of thinking and doing. Freeze. Oh yeah. This is a horrendous slide, but just to give you a taster, there's lots of different organisations and groups you can link up with. And Claire, I'm sure we'll talk about this a bit more. Reaching out to those communities to make sure you understand what's going on in farming, but also to build relationships. So this is just a taste of what we were dealing with at the time. And we talked about some other approaches like participatory action research as an approach to doing research that's sort of grounded in real world experience and value to those involved. So we came up with this sort of farmer action engagement ring to try and make it a bit more applied to real world projects, but trying to think about the topics or the questions we're asking of being more farmer led, what's relevant and on their radar today, going in with sort of questions rather than answers and an open discussion, harnessing sort of things like peer-to-peer learning approaches, being really practical and relevant on farm, action orientated, and this is how we'll dive into today, but what's in it for the farmers, and then this kind of more practical mechanical part of it, but not just sort of swooping into populations and swooping out again, building that regular cyclical close relationship with the farming community. And then this is backed up with lots of other community-based research approaches in the literature, in the medical world, not just in food and farming. So you can draw parallels there. But today we are going to be helping you design and develop better questionnaire-based surveys and considering other approaches when doing research with farmers. And like I said before, we're kindly joined by Grounded Research and Claire today, who's got a wealth of experience in this area. So by the end, so it goes without saying, hopefully you'll be able to design an effective, accessible, and easy to understand questionnaire survey that generates useful findings for farmers. And I'm sure many of you are very experienced in this field already, but like I always think there's always room for improvement. Or some of you might be starting out being like, where on earth do I start? I hope you'll know a bit better how to communicate and disseminate surveys to get good response rates and know when maybe an alternative approach might be better. So Claire will dive into that in a bit more detail. So it's 2 hours, so we'll be wrapped up by 3 p.m. We'll have a little bit of a warm up just to see who's in the room. So for the benefit of Claire really and each other. And then I'll hand over to Claire for her talk with a Q&A up until about 2 p.m. And then we'll have a nice little leg stretch. And then we'll come back about 2:10 for a breakout activity, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. So this will be an opportunity for you to come up with some 1-minute pitches about your either real or hypothetical surveys. And then we'll wrap up by 2:45 with some discussions and final remarks. So that's the plan. Hopefully that'll make sense. And I'll try to do my best to keep us on time. Like with all of the events in Bridging Fields, just a few little basic ground rules. Keep it real, respect, empathy, and active listening. So just be aware we're all coming from different disciplines and walks of life, and all have different viewpoints and ways of looking at things, but that's what makes it exciting. Now for the warm up. So who's who really? So let me just stop sharing my screen so I can see you all. And just, yeah, quick intro, like your name, role, where you're based, and maybe just a brief sentence about what your kind of research interests are. So let me just get my people list up so I can do this in a more orderly fashion. It's probably alphabetical. So we're starting with Alex.
Hi everyone, I'm Alex Adekombi. I'm a soil scientist. I have interest in sustainable soil management and how that affects soil health and why we reduce greenhouse gas. I'm a postdoctoral researcher. I'm currently switching role. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. Tilly.
Hi, I'm Tilly. I'm based at the University of Exeter. I'm a research assistant. I'm currently working on a project focused on preventative healthcare for farmers. So yeah, this is very relevant.
Nice. Thank you, Tilly. Caroline.
Hello, I'm Caroline Kuhn, and I am an independent researcher affiliated to an NGO in Kenya. And the idea, our interest, I would say, in the NGO is to explore the futures of the dairy industry and the role of women in that future, and that future reimagined by them, so to say. So it's all about future literacy labs and I think really I'm very interested in how to make this more, I mean, it's already, I would say, quite interactive with farmers, but I think I need to improve a lot of things, and I'm really looking forward to learn from all of you to do that better. Thank you.
Amazing. Welcome, Caroline.
Thank you.
Matt, you're next.
Hi everyone, I'm Matt Hennessy. I'm a postdoctoral researcher in veterinary social science at the Royal Veterinary College, and my main interests are around sustainable food systems, and I've done a lot of work with poultry abroad and in the UK. Thanks.
Thanks, Matt. Holly.
Sorry, I was doing that thing where you try to eat your do your lunch with the camera off. Hi, I'm Holly Vickery. I'm a lecturer at Harper Adams University. I'm specifically a behaviour and welfare scientist with particular interest in applied welfare on farm and how we can get real world application of the science that we're doing.
Perfect. Nice to see you, Holly. Izzy.
Hi, I'm Izzy Bacon. I'm looking at the wrong screen, which is always awkward. There you are. Hi. So I'm a lecturer at Hartpury University. So my background is livestock health and welfare. So I'm a virologist at heart, and I'm interested in technologies for preventative health in pigs. So I've done some work on needle-free vaccines and looking to continue that investigation in technology and welfare with farmers. So this is really helpful. So thank you.
Fantastic. Yeah, needle-free vaccines. That's well cool. I heard about that recently. Yeah. Joanne.
Hi everybody, glad to be here. I'm Joanne Morris. I'm a research associate at Stockholm Environment Institute at the University of York, and I have worked in various areas. I'm a sustainability scientist, I should say, and so I've worked in small-scale agriculture in Africa, but now not in the food system at all. I'd like to in the future, but mainly interested in being the interface between multiple stakeholders, between the models and real world experience and use of those models. How can you work with those better and interface better with them?
Nice. Thanks, Joanne. Oh yeah, do check out Emmanuel Zuzo, who's the other coordinator's work. I think you two will get on really well. Brilliant. Kat, over to you. Oh, she might be eating a lunch. Oh no.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi everyone. My name is Kat Watson. I lecture animal science at the Royal Agricultural University, and I'm a researcher in a reasonably wide range of areas: sustainable livestock production, livestock health and welfare.
Fantastic. Thank you. Katie.
Hi everyone. My name is Katie Coral. Oh, sorry, me, right, Lisa?
Yep, that's you. Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that. I thought I heard another person jump in, and maybe there's another Katie here. My apologies. My name is Katie Koraleski, and I am now a postdoctoral fellow at the Atlantic Veterinary College in Prince Edward Island in Canada. And so previously to this, I worked and did my graduate work out at the UBC Animal Welfare Program. That's where I got to meet Lisa a few times. And so really excited to be here. Thanks for putting this on. And yeah, I focus on dairy cattle welfare and have researched a range of topics, but always focused on the human dimensions of animal welfare, working with farmers, vets, etc., to try and improve on-farm practices. So thank you.
Amazing, thanks, Katie. I'm glad the time zones worked out. Oh. Cool. Kira.
Hello, thanks, Ethan. I'm a PhD student at Aberystwyth University. Going to be mostly looking at transmission of parasites on sheep farms. I come from very much a quantitative background, so qual stuff is very new. So any of this is amazing for me to jump on board and get to learn from you guys. So yeah, thanks for putting this on.
Brilliant. Welcome, Kira. Hannah.
Hi, I sometimes wonder what I am at the moment. I'm a farm vet. I have been for a really long time. I work in practice. I also lecture at Surrey at the vet school. So I farm at home as well. So I'm really used to kind of collaborating. So that kind of side of things is comes naturally, I think. However, I'm also just starting a PhD in systems thinking. And using systems thinking to, in a practical way, to deal with the kind of real complex, gnarly, wicked problems in One Health. So I'm interested in transdisciplinary research and how to actually use that in the field. Yeah.
Fantastic. Welcome back, Hannah. Luke.
Oh yeah, my name's Luke. I'm the founder director of a agricultural robotics company called Nimbus Agritech. We're aiming to build robots that make the management of living mulch reasonable, so farmers can adopt that sustainable practice. So we're going to be doing a lot of research into whether autonomous management of living mulch is actually feasible.
Brilliant. Thanks, Luke. Clarity.
Hi everyone, my name is Clarit. I'm based at Teesside University. I'm a lecturer in food science and technology. My research background is food technology and biotechnology, and I've been working in food systems since moving from South Africa to here on trying to get better ways to valorize agricultural waste and create like a circular economy. So I'm really interested in this social side and like qualitative side of research because I've mainly been focused on the quantitative side as well. So looking forward to this transdisciplinary interactions. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Clarity. Nina.
Hello, so I'm Nina Ockenden Powell. Currently, I'm a postdoc at University of Bristol, but I'm hopefully moving into a permanent role at the Royal Agricultural University soon. At the moment, I work on vector-borne plant viruses. So I'm interested in plant virus ecology, but in exploring that, also developing new early detection and surveillance tools for both viruses and the insects that spread the viruses. So, you know, I've been sort of dabbling a bit with end user interactions, but not doing it particularly extensively. And as I try to build my research program, this is something I want to do a lot better because obviously co-production is key to generating usable solutions. So thank you, Lisa, for having me here today.
Oh, thank you. Rachel?
Hi, I'm Rachel Mallett. I'm doing a PhD at Harper Adams in family farm business resilience post-Brexit. I'm also a farmer myself, and I've either watched or I've been to all the workshops so far, and they've been really helpful, thank you, and prioritised me contacting all my interviewees to say thank you and tell them where I'd got to, and received very, very positive response for that. So thank you for making me prioritise that. It felt very important, very helpful. Yeah, it's just been great so far. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. That's really good to hear. Yay. Shannon.
Hi, I'm a current PhD student at Cardiff University. And I'm doing One Health research looking at kind of behavioural risk factors for zoonotic disease spillover here in Wales. At the moment, it's a very broad project, but might end up involving farmers. So hoping to learn, obviously. And even if it doesn't end up involving farmers, I think a lot of the skills I learned through this will be very transferable. So excited to be here.
Brilliant. Thanks, Shannon. Sophie?
Hello. Hi, everyone. I'm Sophie. I'm just transitioning out of being a research project manager previously on the AgriFood Network and Land Use for Net Zero into being a full-time PhD student, looking at the uptake of technology by people who grow food, specifically AI to identify birds from their songs.
Oh, so nice. Thanks, Sophie. And I think just seeing who came in late. Bede, would you like to just introduce yourself? Might be multitasking, eating lunch. That's fine. And then.
Hi, sorry,
that's
having
right.
microphone problems.
That's okay.
Bede West, quantitative ecologist at the UK Centre for Ecology and Hydrology. Mostly done sort of empirical plant ecology stuff in the past, but I don't think we're going to change anything at large scale without getting on board with land managers and collaborating synergistically. So that's why I'm here. Thanks.
Brilliant. That's what we like to hear. And then who else did? Someone else who came in at late. Kirsty. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Kirsty Took. I have two hats as a research manager. So I'm on the Farmer Health Hub project with Tilly. And I also am a research manager on a project on nature-based solutions with European and China partners, where we directly survey and interview farmers on their interactions with nature-based solutions.
Ooh, great, thank you. And last but not least, Tyler. But do shout if I've missed anyone.
Hi. I don't know why my camera is not working. Oh, hi.
Yeah.
So my name is Tala. I'm a PhD student with the University of Greenwich and Rothamsted Research. My project is about climate change and particularly the effects on wheat and its competitive wheat. So part of the work that I'm doing is also looking at farmers' attitude and perceptions around wheat and the management of blackgrass and how they see it as a problem for the future. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. So we've got a nice breadth of subjects here. It's quants and quali, early on in careers, further on in careers, plants, animals, nature, everything. So I'm going to now hand over to our wonderful speaker, Claire, and that gives her a nice good background to help target things to you guys. So Claire, feel free to share away, and I'll just pop up when it gets to like Q&A time.
Cool. Thanks so much, Lisa. Lovely to meet you all. And when Lisa approached me and said, "Could you do a webinar for me called Not Another Survey?" I obviously jumped at the chance, because one of the things that we want to do is make, dare I say, taking surveys for farmers quite an enjoyable, interactive experience where they feel that they are getting their voice heard and that they're part of the process. A lot of the time, they're sort of picked up, quizzed, kind of as you're sort of clinging to their lapels, and then they're dropped, and then they never hear what happened to their research. So what we're looking to do is kind of close that loop a little bit better. We work with quite a few universities, institutions up and down the food supply chain, from farmers right the way through to consumers. But I did amend the title slightly, and I did check with Lisa, because when I spoke to my dad, who's a farmer, he said, "Oh, it shouldn't be another survey. It should be another bloody survey." And I'll explain more on that later. Can everyone see my screen okay? Excellent. Then I shall continue. So what we're looking to do and what we're going to be going through is looking to improve research design, some pointers, some ideas that you might not have come across, some of the things that we find running pharma research to be really useful. I'm focusing more on a quantitative side, but if anyone's got any questions about qualitative, then I also do an awful lot of pharma interviews on Teams and in field and all sorts of things about a whole range of topics. So I'm more than happy to ask any of those or answer any of those questions. So a little bit about who we are and why I can talk to you about things like this. I'm a director at Grounded Research, and we are an independent market research agency, and we specialise, like I said, across the whole supply chain. We own and run 4 of our own proprietary panels. We've got farmers, consumers, the supply chain, and vets. Quite happy in that area. They're all a nice bunch to work with. I've got no ambitions to be one of those enormous multi global panel people. I really like the really niche, hard to reach audiences. And the reason that we do what we do and why we've set up these proprietary panels is because we want to make research really audience friendly, accessible, and bring more meaningful and impactfulness to that whole food system, because I'm very aware that we don't have a lot of time to make the changes that we need in time for what needs to happen. So it's really a kind of everyone needs to get on board, and we can do our small bit to support that. So a couple of the clients that we've worked with recently, you might know some of these, you might have even worked with some of these. We've also worked with the likes of ADAS, DEFRA on there already. Anyone who's asking questions of farmers, and they come to us at all stages in the process. So it might be Red Tractor have just onboarded us as their premier supplier for research. So we're doing all of their research program for the next year or so. And it could be, as the case with a project that we worked on with the University of Aberdeen, they rang us, help, we need farmers. The survey's not gone as well as we hoped. Can we get 200 dairy farmers? Yes, absolutely. When do you want them for? So it can really be anywhere along that, and we can support designing a survey, we can distribute a survey, we can get a CSV file to you, or we can do the full analysis. It really depends on what the project needs, whether it's commercial, academic, policy based. It's really varied stuff. So what I'm going to cover is why farmers are experiencing survey fatigue, and I've got some personal examples of those. What's going to make your surveys valuable to farmers so that they actually want to engage with them. Some of the basic principles that we work to when we're designing research specifically for farmers. I've pulled out 4 common survey mistakes that we see. I made one of them, and the others are from some PhD examples that we've worked with over the years. So it's kind of everyone's up for critiques, and I even find myself kind of, if you don't check as you're kind of check in with yourself, sometimes you can kind of get carried away when you're scripting a survey, that you just forget that there's a human who's trying to do it on the other end. And then finally, I'll move into how to communicate surveys effectively and close that feedback loop, like I was saying. So by the end, you'll be able to think about whether a survey is the right tool. It's not always the right tool, and I am a big fan of a hybrid methodology where you've got some qual in with some quant. I think it's absolutely invaluable in agriculture if you top and tail with some really valuable qual with a sort of a quant sandwich with quant in the middle. You'll be able to design some surveys for real-world agricultural audiences, and we'll be looking at some of the stakeholder motivations, barriers, expectations when we talk about how to communicate what you're finding, what you're doing. So moving on, a quick icebreaker. If you want to put in the chat, it might be easier, and then if you see a funny one, just upvote it. What is the worst survey ever that you've ever seen, or a question, and why? So I'll just give you a couple of minutes just to type those up, and I'll share what my one is. Do you want to expand at all, Lisa? Why was it so terrible?
It was very, very long. It took me like nearly an hour to complete.
Wow.
And it had like really repetitive, contradictory questions. So yeah, and it was just very hard to like interpret the questions. I felt like if I didn't have a PhD, I wouldn't know how I'd be able to interpret questions.
That's a good one. What level of awareness of antibiotic resistance do you have? My favourite one is as you come out of the toilets at King's Cross, there's a touch screen to say how clean the toilets were. And I just think that is application there, just that has not been thought about properly, because I bet they just don't have very many people touching that. I always try to do it with my elbow because I feel sad for that poor person at the other end who's just hoping for responses. Some wrong targeting, yeah, that comes up an awful lot. You can also, if you've got any experiences on you personally analysing, we had a really fun one that we got sent from DEFRA because they'd forgotten to put some routing in, and they made, in what capacity you're answering this survey, a multiple choice question, and then proceeded to ask everybody a load of open-ended questions, and we had no idea whether they were answering as a landowner, a concerned resident, a conservationist, because they'd multi-selected, so we couldn't actually break it down. So again, just survey design and what makes it bad. Brilliant. So that's given you guys a couple of ideas, but I appreciate it's lunchtime, and take one of these case report from where were you bitten on the low. And so, oh yeah, that's a good one. Clarity is a big one, I think. I'll come on to that. So why farmers are experiencing survey fatigue. For a start, and like I said, I'm a farmer's daughter, I get to see quite a lot of the surveys that my dad and my brother get sent. Just to give you some context, farmers are getting way too many surveys. They're getting them from all angles. They're getting them from sort of optional advertising through to their inboxes, all their membership organisations. DEFRA want a piece of them as well. And I asked my dad to send me every survey he gets sent because I'm nosy. I'm a researcher, and I counted them up. He's had 92 requests, and that's not the advertising ones on Farming Forum or anything. 92 requests for a survey completion this year. And had he done them all, that would have been well over 30 hours. And only 2 of those were incentivized. So for context, that's what we mean when we say survey fatigue. It's you're going to have to work really hard to make these guys want to take part in the research you're doing. It's too much at the moment, and where you can consolidate and share the value is going to be really worthwhile. You've also got to consider timing and who it is you're targeting and when. The number of surveys that we get asked to send out in the middle of July by companies that work in agriculture is really phenomenal. Understanding when they're filling in their forms, what time of year it is, what are they going to be drilling, are they going to be combining, all of those kind of things you need to take into account. And the other thing I would say is be finger on the pulse, ready to go. So I watch the weather forecast, and if I'm trying to get farmers in the southwest, I try and get them when it's pouring with rain and they're trying not to go outside, and I give them a reason not to go. So kind of work with them and be a bit clever about it. I think I had 10 years in marketing before I went into research, and it really made you appreciate audiences and how to get them to do stuff, because that's essentially what my job was, although it's quite nice not to be flogging stuff to people anymore. The other thing is there's often no incentives attached, which seems a little bit unfair because the rest of us all get paid to do work, and we often ask farmers to do it for free. And again, if they're not seeing the value, they're even less likely to do it. And what I will say is, where you're asking farmers to do things paid, you'll get a much better response. And what we often find is we give them the option of, do you want to donate to charity or do you want to keep it for yourself? And more often than not, they're donating it to charity. They just want the recognition rather than the payment itself. And finally, like I said before, they need to see the value. Why should I do it? You've got to sell it in a little bit more to them. So just to explain, we know how awful surveys are because there's so many memes out there, and how long they are, how long they take, how terribly designed they are, all these kind of things. So I like to have a printout of these just to remind me that there's humans on the other side of a survey. So when we say value, what value is there to taking part for farmers? First and foremost, it's got to be a really clear benefit. Farmers value surveys that will give them the practical insights. They want to know what have other farmers said to this particular question. What are you doing with the results? When are the results coming out? How will I know when they've come out? So if you can be upfront with them without being too copy heavy on what changes is this research going to do, they're much more inclined to engage. You need to respect their time. So often we'll be asked to share surveys that sort of go up to 30, 40 minutes for a farmer. And it's just far too long. In-depth interviews, again, they're expecting farmers to give up an hour and a half of time. And it's kind of, well, if you don't need to spend that long talking to somebody. I don't even think I spend that long talking to my parents. It's got to be respectful of their time and understanding of what they do. So how you can smooth that process, give them a booking link that they can change. Don't expect them to be there because something might have changed. I was trying to get hold of a farmer the other day, and his wife got back to me and said, I'm really sorry, he's burst a vein in his leg, he's in A&E, but he said he'll take the call if you can call him on this number instead. So I didn't, but it's just their lives can change at a moment's notice. If you're trying to get hold of them and get them to do things, give them other options. If they want to take part, they'll find a way. Transparency is really important to farmers. There's an awful lot around how data is being used, and they're quite a cautious bunch. So they want to know who's doing the asking, and if you can build some trust and rapport before you're going out to them. So engage with Farmers Weekly, talk about how important the research is. There's so many farmers on social media. TikTok is awash with them. You'd never believe it, but it's probably the best performing channel we have to talking to farmers. And they like seeing a face. They want to know who's the warm bodies behind the research, not just another screener that they have to get through. And finally, I think it's really important to explain what the fair exchange looks like. So we say £1 a minute seems a fair exchange when you're offering any financial incentives, but broadly speaking, they're pretty open to taking part in unpaid survey work if they can see a benefit directly to them, which is understandable if you're asking for half an hour of their time. So they have to feel like their voice will be heard and considered, and it becomes more of a partnership collaboration rather than a transactional relationship. So this is a great checklist to work on. It's quite a good one to just print out and bear in mind when you're building and designing a survey. Keep it short. Only ask what you need. Anything more than 10 minutes, you're going to start losing interest unless it's a really specialist topic that they're particularly passionate about. You want to be using plain language, so it's really easy to kind of slip into that sort of the corporate bullshit style when you're writing surveys. Try and keep it as simple as possible, and if you can humanize it, I mean, by all means use ChatGPT and ask it to make this question more human, just to make it feel a nicer experience for the respondent. A lot of the time, a lot of questions get asked and the data's never used, or it's a nice to have, and it's adding to that fatigue, and it will mean that you'll have less impact down the line if we keep wearing them away with these kind of things. Most farmers are doing surveys on their mobile. They are open to, if you request that they do it on their desktop, but they'll have a better experience on their desktop. Be quite upfront with that. But generally speaking, they'll be doing it on a tractor, parked up somewhere while they're waiting for something, or sitting in a truck waiting for the vet to arrive. Or that's really, you want to catch them and make it really slick and quick for them to take part. And one of the other things is routing. I think what we've seen more recently when we're working alongside universities is the routing is getting better, but it will never be perfect. And if you can improve that user experience, you'll get so much more traction. And where we've worked hard to plan and prep a survey and make that experience an enjoyable one, the response rate speaks for itself. Again, with the cognitive load, you're dealing with people who are probably trying to multitask on 3 or 4 different levels. Something else will be going on while they're doing it. Someone might be asking them questions. I've seen instances where there's a choice experiment and there's like a tiny tweak in the wording, and farmers just get annoyed because they're like, I'm not playing spot the difference with you again, and they'll leave. There's no incentive for them to do it if it's sort of too subtle or it's not in sort of plain speak. And lastly, and really, really important, try and pilot it with real farmers. And if you've got a quant survey going out, try and pilot it with them on a Teams call, because you can then straight away see where things are not sticking or they're not being interpreted correctly. I'd say go, if you can, 2 to 3 is fine. If you can get 10, it really does make all the difference. So I'd say build some networks and get some tame farmers that are happy to work with you on your specialist area, and ask them if they can just support you before it goes out to wider audiences. So the 4 common survey mistakes, and you can try and spot which one was mine about 4 years ago, and I kicked myself, and I've never made that mistake ever since. So there'll be a little bit of thinking on this one as well. And I'll ask for audience participation. So mistake number 1, jargon and unexplained acronyms. This is something that farmers come back to us all the time and say, oh, it's too much. I didn't understand what you were trying to get at there. So what do you think is wrong with this question? So we've got, to what extent do you utilize IPM, SFI compatible actions and regenerative principles in your current farm system? And this was a real question that was going out to farmers. Any thoughts? Stick them in the chat if you're brave enough to share. Yep, great. Acronyms. Asking multiple concepts in one question. Undefined. Yeah, so we don't know what extent means. Yeah, it's all a bit woolly. It's all a bit consultant speak. It's not very farmer friendly. So if you were going to rewrite the question, can you rewrite it so that any farmer can answer it without, because you're not using specialist wording, separate out each idea and make sure that the meaning is clear and specific? So how would you rework that question, do you think?
Sorry, I'm just wondering, what does IPM and SFI stand for, so that we can rewrite the question with those spelled out?
So IPM is Integrated Pest Management, and SFI is the Sustainable Farming Incentives.
Thank you.
You're testing me on my acronyms there. So I'll just give you 60 seconds to think how you might change that. There is no right answer. It's all improvements. You might change the question type, change the structure slightly.
who's going to be the brave first person to press enter. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, Nina, and how would you do that? And how would you do it as a multi-select underneath?
You could do if you wanted to specifically find items under those particular headings, but if you were just broadly wanting to find out what kind of approaches that they use that are more in the, you might want to replace sustainable with regenerative, depending on the audience. But I was just thinking more broadly.
Okay, I think we've got some great ideas coming through. So what we changed it to was similar to how Nina said, which of the following, if any, do you currently use on your farm? We gave them a get out because not everybody's using them. Surprise, surprise, they should be, but they don't. And then for each one you use, tell us how regularly you use it. So it gives you an idea of to the extent without asking them a vague conceptualized idea. So I think, has anyone got any questions about that particular one? Or is that quite clear about how to the before and after? Cool. So the next example we had was double-barreled question.
Got a question from Lizzie, actually. Yeah.
Oh, I forget that I'm on the wrong screen when I look. Right. Just when talking about, so Nina mentioned about like an open-ended question. Is this a thing that you would avoid in surveys, just thinking of time? Because I like an open-ended question to get that richness of the data when you're thinking about everyone has independent views, you can kind of do more thematic analysis. But when we're saying about the time, there's
the time
not.
burden.
Yeah, I just didn't know if this was something you would maybe avoid, or if you do it, suggest how long you should spend on it, maybe.
For me, it depends where you're putting the question in the survey and have you warmed them up enough. But then it's almost like a bell curve. Have you warmed them up enough to have good opinions, or have they started getting sick and they're going to get like they just fed up and they're just going to give you 3 words? So I think where you've got to really plan where you think the most value will be got from an open-ended, and make sure that you're hitting it kind of squarely in the middle of that bell curve and where you think that might be. There are a couple of research studies on it around, but I don't think there's any of the behavioural stuff with farmers particularly, but it kind of sits around about the 3 to 4 minute mark. This one didn't work that well because it was the first question they asked and the farmers were a bit, I don't know, I'm not ready for this.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Claire.
Okay, so we've got double barrel questions. This one is a killer. It's so easy to fall into. So why do you think biostimulants are important and how frequently do you apply them? So what do you think's wrong with this question? Yeah, great. It's definitely leading. So funnily enough, this one was written by a biostimulant company looking to understand why farmers don't think they're important enough to be using them as much as they'd like to be. So hence why it was probably quite a leading one. Yeah, Joanne, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. 2 very different questions. It's an essay, not a quick survey. Yep, so bias direct. So the other thing is it assumes a certain level of knowledge of biostimulants. It doesn't, before we even get to the point of whether or not the farmer thinks they're important, lots of farmers know about them but don't really, and I know this because we did the survey, lots of farmers know about them but don't really know what they do and how important they'd be to their farm. The market penetration hasn't been that high, the results haven't been that reliable, so assuming that they already know and use them is kind of putting the cart before the horse, really. So again, how would you rewrite that question so you don't have any assumed sentiment? You need to make it easier to analyze, because if you have 2 questions in one, it's really awful to pick it apart. How do you reduce the burden on the respondent by not making it quite so open-ended and sort of casting out into the mire? And how do you get more from the question that you might want to figure out some of the barriers to use as well? So any ideas or thoughts you guys might have on that? So do you use the following products? Give options. Yeah. Yep, great one, Holly. Scales. Okay, so what we did for this one was we thought a screening question to start off with. So if they're not using it or they don't know what biostimulants are, that's really important information to get from farmers from the off. If they answer yes, we ask them how often they're using them, because that really changes sort of how important, the importance they might place on them. And we still wanted to get that open-ended. So why do you use them? And that's where the richness and the thematics we'd established. Do they use them or not? And how much knowledge they're going to have based on how often they're using them before we then get into the depth of it. And if they said no, we just wanted to know why not, because that wasn't something the previous question covered. So look for opportunities where you're going to learn more without really increasing the cognitive load on the farmer or the burden in terms of time.
Claire, just a quick question. How, like, if they say no, not sure what biostimulant is, because this is actually really topical to something we've been involved in, and they say not sure, can you then reroute them to a bit of information?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, I mean, by all means, if you want to reroute them to some sort of knowledge bits and then ask them how they feel about biostimulants, it depends what the objective was. In this one, we were looking at sort of barriers and opportunities for this particular biostimulant company. So how can they sell more? Because they had a very exciting new product. If you're into chemistry, I had to sit through 2 hours of biostimulant chemistry before we started doing any interviews on that one. It was quite. The last time I did chemistry was when I was about 12. So mistake number 3, we've had this gets used so much because you kind of throw a question out there and it feels, because you're this close to the research, it feels like it's sort of a question that they should be able to answer quite easily. But if you think that they've just picked up their phone, it's quite a conceptual idea, and that can kind of throw people off guard. And if you sort of lead with one of these type of questions, we see an awful lot of drop-offs in responses, because they go, oh God, I have no idea, can't be bothered. And you need to kind of tease them in before you get to these kind of big philosophical ideas, especially where terms like sustainability or regenerative, where they're not really defined and there's no fixed meaning around them. What you don't want to do is invite too much critique from farmers around the use of the terminology. So I was quite surprised when we did a climate study that there are still quite a few climate denying farmers or climate change deniers, even though they're all 80-something% of them said that they're experiencing extreme weather events on their farm. And it's kind of, okay, that's interesting how you're interpreting that. But some of the questions meant that they just weren't answering the way we would have expected them to, because there was this denial in a way. But so that was sort of going off on a bit of a tangent. So how satisfied are you with your farm's sustainability? What's wrong with that question? Kind of already talked about it, so it's cheating a little bit. Yep, great point, Katie. Excellent. Oh, they're flooding in now. I can't keep up with my scrolling. Too broad definition. Yep. Presume sustainability is a priority. Yes, absolutely. Well, you've hit all the nails on the head. That's my list done. So well done. Everyone's got the hang of it now. So how we... Do you have any idea on how you might rewrite that question? So this one was a DEFRA question. Yep, so we've got breaking it into specific domains. Perfect. Use a grid like Hart, absolutely. So how we broke it down was how confident do you feel in your current approach to with all the different domains, and then just did a sort of a scale question, and we grouped some of those into various different ones. So you sort of teased the answer out of farmers, and you could understand how they relate to each other. So you're not just talking about sustainability as one concept, but you can start to see the importance of varying aspects of sustainability, which you can then analyze based on farm type, age of farmer, all sorts of things. Yeah, so interestingly, Jan, what we do like to do a lot of is have optional open text. So if they've got more that they'd like to add, they will, if they're engaged with your survey and you've warmed them up properly. Is just if you've got any more thoughts on this, and give them the option of doing it. Don't kind of force them into answering big questions too often or too soon. And then the last mistake I wanted to go through is cognitive overload. And this one was, I hope no one's here from Forest Research, but they wanted 20 statements on a scale of 1 to 10. And it was just, they were randomized. So there was absolutely no coherence to the order that they were coming at, which I understand. And obviously you do need that sometimes, but I would have randomized them within groups because we'd had such a high drop-off rate on this one. And I felt particularly uncomfortable asking farmers who, it was quite a sensitive financial time, how important is profitability on your farm? So some of those questions felt a little bit spiky, and I thought that they were going to get quite sort of inaccurate data because of the timing, how they asked them, and how they worked as a question type. So if you had 20 statements, what would you do? And have you got any, I've put in a bonus point there. Can you break it up with something fun? Are you doing fun stuff with farmers in the survey? They are humans. They do have a sense of humour. I take away on a weekly basis. Okay, so what we did with this one is we reduced them into clusters with some key themes. And if you can add in some imagery, it really breaks up the text. Like we're all, picture speaks 1,000 words. I just don't see enough imagery, use of graphics in a lot of the surveys that we work with. So the other one is use a much simpler scale. So again, like Hart rather than a 10-pointer. It depends how sensitive you need that scale to be. The other thing was if you can add in any routing. So if you're asking things to, farmers just don't like to be asked the same thing over and over again. They've already told you something once. They don't want to then be asked assuming that you don't know the answer to what they'd already said. So again, get clever on the routing. On this one, there were some farmers who just said, I don't engage with any technology, I don't adopt it, I have no plans to adopt it. Why are we then asking them all these agri-tech questions? They just don't, they're going to skew the sample, they don't need to be asked. So lastly, on that one, the bonus points. Some of the funny stuff we've used, we've stuck memes in there. We've kept it human by putting in comments around, we know this is a long one, stay with us. In that particular one, we put in just checking you're still with us. I enjoy SFI paperwork so much. I sometimes do it extra for fun. Just kind of if you can get a smirk out of them, that's all you're really looking for. You need to remind them that you're human on one end of the survey, because if they know you're a human, they're going to want to help. That's natural human behavior. And you need to remember that they are also human. And if you can make this process any more fun, engaging, humorous, or something that they're going to laugh about, then it really will make a difference. The only thing you have to be careful of is just not biasing how you might then influence their decisions. Yeah, exactly that, Katie. So a fun meme, almost there. There's some really funny ones out there. Just type in market research memes and you'll get loads. Check your copyrights though. You can make some up yourself. I've done some really funny agricultural related ones. There was a cow that was stuck in a gate, and just put something funny over that, how it feels doing a survey, but we're nearly at the end. So yeah, Lisa, like you said, just put in a funny statement that will just raise a smile as they're doing their 20 statements in a row. So one of my big things, and before talking about surveys and survey fatigue hits all of you guys, when you're doing any survey work, it's not just a case of write the survey, prepare the link, send it out and hope for the best. There's so much kind of wraparound work that goes within that. So you're looking at engaging your stakeholder groups to get support from them to start with. You're looking at ways that you can broaden that relationship with farmers. So by all means, if you want to have more of a presence on social media, that does get a lot of interest. Reach out to influencers on social media. If it's relevant to them and other farmers, it works. If you're just begging them, please can you share my survey, without any context, any meaning, any reason, they just won't do it. They won't even reply to you. So find those people that have a real vested interest in what you're going to be working with. So I noticed some of you have got some really, really interesting topics. We were at University of Nottingham on a BVD one, and it was amazing how many farmers were just really interested. It's such an important issue that they engaged willingly, happily. Again, we've done poultry with Campylobacter. It's amazing how many people will engage because it's their specialist subject, and get the snowball sampling going as early as you can. So making a bit of a communications plan. You don't want to kind of spray and pray, which is a term that gets used in marketing, and kind of fling it around, hope for the best. Things are changing way too quickly in agriculture that if you've got something in field for 3 months, Rachel Reeves might well drop another torpedo on the sector, and it will just ruin your data set. If there's another financial hit, if wheat prices are an all-time low, if livestock prices fall suddenly, if there's a big silage issue, it's going to change how people feel. And if you can't collect data quickly and efficiently, it ruins your data set. Speaking as someone who asked farmers what keeps you awake at night, and then 2 weeks later inheritance tax came in, and it was all anyone spoke about for ages, so I had to make it a longitudinal study for over a year. So make sure that your language is consistent and audience appropriate. So use the same terminology. If you can get some repetition in there without it feeling boring, it helps the message to stick. If you can make sure that you plan it so that, and I think it's something Lisa touched on earlier, plan how you're going to tell them about it to get them to do it, but also tell them about the results. Tell them what happened, what input they had, and what the impact was from their input is one of the most important things to farmers. And when we ask, we've got about just under 2,000 farmers on our panel, and when we ask them to take part in research, we ask why they're interested in joining, and you've got answers in there. I want to get my voice heard. I want to get paid for taking part in research. And more often than not, they just want to feel like they're part of the change. So I think it's 70-something% of them are saying, I want to feel like I'm being heard and know what the results are, which I think is really interesting, because it's the panel that we run is one of the highest incentive paying panels I think out there. And we can do that because we're not engaging with big call centres. It doesn't cost any more to do the research, but it's quicker, more efficient, and more farmer friendly, which means you can get engagement much easier. What is really essential, especially if you're working in research groups, is who's doing what, when, where, and why. So even if it's just a thrown together Excel plan, you will get in an absolute pickle without one. You'll forget which link you've sent. Have you appended something onto the end so that you know where people have come in from? All of those kind of bits that you kind of wish that you knew once you'd already gone out there without a plan. So make a plan, try and stick to the plan, and build your content delivery as part of the survey. Don't build a survey and then kind of tickle away as an afterthought, because first of all, it takes ages to keep rewriting, and secondly, you don't know what's gone where, when, why, and what can you expect back. So really similarly to Lisa's wheel, we've got our own virtuous circle of stakeholder engagement wheel. So you'll need to define the purpose to them, identify who your audience are, why would they care, why wouldn't they care, and how can you overcome some of those barriers? How are you going to engage? So it might be using stakeholder relationships, leveraging. You might sort of start getting people interested in what you're doing by contacting Farmers Weekly, telling them what your research is all about, getting some excitement out there, using the snowball effect. And lastly is making sure you're really upfront with what is this going to do, and how you're going to tell them about it. And that really is the key. Can you take their details, GDPR consenting, obviously, and tell them, where the research is? They don't just want to know that it's been published in 2 years' time, because they've sort of forgotten about it by then. They want to be told, after taking part, thank you for taking part, this is what happens next. You'll expect to hear results here, and this is what I'm hoping for the results. So kind of lead them along the journey with you. Don't just wait for months and months until something gets published, because the problem you have there is that they'll just feel a bit forgotten about and a bit undervalued. So you want to keep them as snuggled up as possible, and it helps as we're doing more and more research with farmers, you're kind of helping the next project along by not giving them a bad experience. And lastly, before I go, because I think this is really helpful in remembering that it's a human at the end of the survey, this is my brother. He is really, really busy. He's my harshest critic when it comes to testing surveys, because he's absolutely brutal with me. He will tell me if it's awful. But most importantly, if you can remember that there is somebody, his job is he's got 5 years to get a conventional farm as an organic farm. He's also speaking at Groundswell. He does living mulch demonstrations. He's part of the agroecology group. He's a really, really, really busy guy. And even if I throw money at him, he still won't do my surveys unless they're good surveys. So when you're writing a survey, think of Matt sat on his tractor. His wife's on the phone. She's saying, "What time are you coming home? The baby needs to go to bed. Are you gonna be doing bath time?" He's got his boss who's breathing down his neck saying, "I bought you a new car. I want my pound of flesh. You're doing those spreadsheets tonight." Why should he do your survey instead of anything else he's got going on? And really think about how can you make it appeal to him? How can you make it worth his while? How can you sell it into him that's going to make him feel onboarded, passionate and interested in the results? So, any questions at all?
Well, thank Claire, that was really good.
I'm
conscious I've just put in the chat that people can post questions in there. So I think, would it be all right if we just have a quick stretch the legs? A 5-minute break, everybody, and then we'll come back for any a couple of burning questions for Claire, and then we'll go into the breakout groups and then come back to any remaining questions at the end. That's all right with everyone.
Yeah, cool.
I got too interested and forgot the timekeeping. But yeah, so I'll put my if we're going to break for 5 minutes, keep this on the call, just turn your videos and mics off, and come back at 2:15. Okay.
Lovely. Thanks, Lisa.
Okay, right. Welcome back, everyone. Hopefully that was enough time to stretch your legs and get out your chairs. Some excellent contributions on the chat there, which is really good. So I think we'll have a few minutes to ask Claire a couple of questions before we go into the breakout rooms, just to let the numbers fluctuate a little bit. Don't know if Claire's back yet. Yeah, it's a good point, Bede. I think if digital formats of questionnaire surveys are not feasible, then sitting down and doing things with people is definitely the most effective way. I mean, Claire, if you're back, I think maybe some of the like large population level surveys, like from DEFRA and things, they also do like paper versions. I don't know how common that is now. Used to be more common. If anyone does have some ideas about, I think it was Joanne's question. Are there more creative types of questions rather than having only text-based questions that one could use? Do contribute your ideas. Not the most creative person, so maybe diagrammatic stuff, but then that can be potentially quite hard to do on a phone. Go on, Katie.
Hi. Do you mean like I typically use Qualtrics for my surveys, and I would say they have a ton of really, because I'm not the most creative myself either, but they have like sliding, like on a scale slide, how much you agree or disagree with this statement, or how much does this, classify you, or versus, multiple choice. So they've got, or like, fill in response, or, yes or no, if it's just two. So I would say there's, the tools out there, there's some pretty creative ideas, but I don't know if that's what you were meaning.
Yeah, no, good point. Joanne, did you?
Yeah, I suppose yes, I have seen on Qualtrics and other there are lots of variations, the ways you can ask. I was probably thinking, so I've been mainly working in workshops and interviews and things like that, where you can be more like arty and creative but thinking about it again, that doesn't really translate very well into a survey that only needs 5 minutes. And I was thinking about the point about images and whether you can use images in the question, but it's actually really hard to use an image to relay what the question is that you're asking or the answers that you want to get. I think you probably might run into more problems than it's worth to use to break it up by having a image question rather than a text question.
Can of worms. Well, hold those thoughts, because I think when Claire comes back towards the end, we'll maybe revisit them. I do want to ping you into little breakout groups now, because these are some things you might want to flesh out in the discussions. So on your screen is the instructions, and I'm about to open these breakout rooms. Now, some of you, for some reason, technical demons, are going to just stay in this room because your Teams doesn't let me put you into rooms for some reason. And others you can ping into your numbered room. But basically, I want you to think about your own or a colleague's research, or it could be a hypothetical situation that involves a questionnaire survey relevant to farmers and growers. And go around each person in your little group. There'll be 3 or 4 of you in a group, answering why should farmer Matt, that Claire shared before, complete your survey. Okay, so think of everything you've heard today. Why should you complete your survey. You take 1 minute for yourself to share that uninterrupted, and then as a group you can discuss the strengths in each other's arguments and the areas for improvement, and come up with, as a group, your best case for Farmer Matt to do your very important questionnaire survey. Okay, and you've only got 1 minute to persuade them. 1 minute spiel, and then we'll come back together towards the end. I'll give you time countdown messages in your little breakout groups to share your case. You're making your case for it. Okay, so you can think about sharing maybe how quick the survey is, what it's on, how it will work, what it goes to, all those things that Claire's covered. Okay, does that all kind of make sense? So basically working as a little group to come up with your best case. So for those of you who can't be assigned, you'll just stay in the main room, and Claire, you'll be in the main room with these guys, and then I'll float around. So I hope that works, because last time that was interesting.
Did you want me to answer some of the questions now, Lisa, or?
We'll come back to them at the end, Claire. I think. Okay. Yeah, cool. They're in the chat, so if that's all right. Pinging you into your rooms. More stop sharing as well. Actually, move. Okay. So I'll leave you guys 3 here. Actually, you can have the benefit of just having a shared screen, couldn't you? And I'll keep coming back as I move in between the rooms.
Hi there, Alex. How you doing?
Hi.
I don't think I saw Tesfaye on the intro. Tesfaye, what is it you do?
Tesfaye?
No, I might have popped to get something. It was really interesting to hear. You're a soil scientist then, Alex?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you work with farmers a lot?
I not previously in UK here, but I aim to do things around that in the future. So that's why the interest. And previously I do more of experimental and field research, hoping that I will need to use software in the future with farmers.
Yeah. What is it you're looking to understand from them?
Yeah, management practices. Why? Why do they choose those management practices that they choose, and how have they been measuring the benefit of such sustainable management practices? So those are some of the interests that I love to use software to understand from farmers. Yeah.
Okay. Is it going to be a behavioural study, or is it going to be a knowledge-led study?
Knowledge-led.
Okay. The reason I ask is AHDB have got some really interesting. There's a study in 2001 that looked at knowledge transfer and what made farmers do certain practices on their farms. So that might be worth a look.
Okay. AHDB, right?
AHDB, yeah, the Agricultural and Horticultural Development Board.
Yeah. I know.
But we've done some behavioural bits with farmers, and why they choose the things they do or do the things they do. And knowledge plays quite a small part in human decisions anyway.
Yeah.
So it might be worth having a look at some behavioural frameworks that will help understand why they say they do the things they do, and even unpick the say do gap on what they said they do versus what they actually do on farm. I don't know if you'd be going that far down into it, or whether you're just looking at the metrics of the sort of soil health.
Yeah, I would actually love to know what they do, why they do what they do, and many a times I was analyzing the data from CEH and that was collected by us in collaboration with CEH, and I realized variants in the kind of management practices that farmers they say, okay, this is called zero tillage, and what each person does as zero tillage may be different from one farmer to another, or what each farmer practices as minimum tillage or maybe different from one farmer to another. So yeah, that's the kind of thing I would love to know.
And is min-till and zero-till the same thing? And are they, obviously then you factor in if they're potato growers, you can't min-till. So there's lots of things.
Right, I think I've popped in and seen everyone.
Yeah.
You can see me come back. Lots of people have left, so that's why it's confusing. This is probably to say, I don't know if they're still in the meeting. But yeah, have you guys had a good, well, Claire, you're probably it's gonna be really easy for you, but Alex, have you had a go?
Yeah, the question we had was to look at Matt. Why should Matt be interested in my survey? So that was the question, if I get that correctly. And one thing that come to mind is, what is the need for Matt to leave all those competing activity around his life, his business, his family, and things, to then hear about my 10-15 minutes survey? According to Claire, that we should make sure we don't give them too long things to deal with. So what is the need for Matt will be my first thing. How does my survey improve his farming business, and also how does the outcome of my survey improve things around policy and the practice? So that's what comes to mind, and I will need to also possibly in the narratives or the introductory message to Matt, and in the questionnaire, I should put in there highlights of those things that will be a benefit to his practice and to policy from my outcomes. Yeah, those are things that came to mind when looking at those questions. Yeah.
That first page, benefits to you are
yeah,
hopefully. I mean, so Claire, Alex came to the first residency at the RAU, and I think because it was a bit of like soils regen focus. Alex, what would you say if you were doing a survey and it was aimed at those farmers that you met? What would you think they'd be interested in?
Please come again.
What do you think the farmers that were at the residency? So it was John T from Connigree Farm, Ed Horton of I've forgotten the name of his farm.
Yeah.
Coates. And then we had that Debbie.
Yeah.
Sort of what do you think they'd be interested in?
So then with the third one I remember was Alex Farm, maybe because the namesake, where we have collaborators working together, those working on animal and him on crops. So one thing that will interest them, that I think will interest farmers, especially those ones I met, is how can we sustainably transition to net zero, or sustainably manage our soils. Speaking from myself now, my side of the story now, and those ones we met actually. So how can we sustainably transition, and also how can our story be heard by the government I mean, in terms of from the policy end. So those are some of the things that I see with the farmers. Yeah, they are doing well in terms of they are aware. Most of the guys we met are really aware of how to bring in sustainable management into their practices. So, but do governments actually see some of these practices, and how are they better incentivized? So those are some of the things that comes to mind when I think about those farmers we met around.
So Claire, that's a good question for you, because there seems to be like an appetite for influencing policy, and for policy to be a bit more attuned to, even a little bit would be helpful, to farming challenges. So how realistic is that as a, if that was a value in participating, how realistic is that for us, survey research?
I'd say when you're doing a hook, you've got to be really careful that you're being truthful and not overstating or overselling. If you're saying that this will directly influence policy, but actually it's part of about 200 studies that are going into a big European study that no one's ever going to see the results of, and it's all gone sort of too big and you're never going to see an output. Can you really say that? So I think you've got to maintain that authenticity. So there's probably about 6 to 8 hooks that we'd look to get farmers on board, and it really will depend as well which farmers you're going for. Some farmers are very generally speaking, conventional farmers or arable farmers tend to be more driven by business metrics. So some of the stuff we might use is we did a study on environmental baselining, and I found a figure that could be backed up by a research paper that says using data effectively in farms can uplift turnover by 20% and reduce waste by up to 40%. And straight away they're hooked. Ooh, data. Okay, I'm interested. And it's almost kind of it does feel very marketing-y. I've definitely play on that background quite heavily, but I think it's more, how can you get them interested in the story? And if think about your topic inside out. So if you were doing something on soil health, you might use the line that they say we've only got 50 harvests left. Is that really true? We're looking for farmers to tell us what it's like on their farms, to be able to understand and myth bust some of these industry rhetorics. And you'll get them going, no, I don't think that's true, or yeah, it's a dire situation on my farm. But you've got them in, and you're not lying, you're not promising something that you can't deliver on. But you've got to think about what's going to flick their buttons and pull their knobs and get them. Sorry, that was. But what's going to get them? What's going to get them hooked straight away and go, oh, I'm going to say something on this. It's almost like a bit clickbaity, but without being unethical.
Trashy. Yeah. So that's a good point, isn't it? It's not promising the earth, but being like tapping into the psyche of that sector or those groups. Which, Alex, you may find you need to speak to other people in, like Claire, or other people in those sectors to find out what is who's got a finger on the pulse.
I'd definitely say find yourself a couple of tame farmers who are really into their soils. Get in touch with Direct Driller as a publication. There's loads of, you'll find your niche area and you'll see the same five farmers who are really involved in it.
Yeah.
And once they know you, you can snowball and get support.
Claire, I did have a question for you actually. Well, I've got you. When you receive like a survey to share with a certain group and sector, and you think it's not very good, or there's parts, like say take DEFRA for instance, how How do you manage that? Because they're like your kind of network of farmers that you don't want to like, throw crap at. But then you also have a business that you're having to like share these other people's surveys. So like, how do you manage that? Do you edit them?
I look at it and I go, I think this survey would benefit from some research consultation. And some of them are great. Some of them really get it, and there's absolutely nothing we need to do with it. Other ones, they need a complete rework. But some have already been so far through. We're working on one at the moment, and it's across 11 territories, 13 universities. It's got to the sign-off process before we even get to look at it. It's 18 months of sign-offs, and they sent it and said, could you check it? And I said, I'm not going to check it for survey quality. I'll check it for language and use of terminology and things like that. And there were some tweaks. They had an attention check in there that was really boring, and so I just changed it to say which is the best, which tractor brand is which color tractor is the best brand or something. Green, red, blue, purple. So I think it is a balance. It's managing stakeholders, and
it depends on where they are.
Yeah, and I kind of say, look, we've got 45 projects going out every year. I know these guys. I speak to them in interviews. We've got to the point with lots of them where if someone says, I need a dairy farmer based here with this, who feeds this, I can go, oh yeah, Ben will help you.
Oh, that's really
and
good.
Like we know so much about them, not just from what they've told us, but because they're engaging with research, and we use that network quite a lot. So if there's a particularly challenging brief or an audience, the poultry guys are really hard to get hold of, and once you've got one of them as your friend, they then kind of go, don't worry, they're legit.
Yeah. Yeah, that is good. Right, I better do another announcement. Ping them back in 1 minute. My timings get very skew with.
No problem.
So what we'll do, bring everybody back, ask a volunteer from each group to do the 1 minute pitches. And then, Claire, if you'd like to do feedback on them, if that's
sure.
If you're happy doing that. It's a bit of an ask.
Oh, sounds brutal. How nasty can I be?
I'll prepare them. But then that will flow in nicely to the remaining questions they've got for you.
Sure.
So we did answer the one in the chat, and they were helping each other, to be honest, answer each other's questions. But about how creative can you really be if you're trying to be, concise with time? So some of them mentioned using Qualtrics, so they've got like more visual buttons and sliders and stuff.
Yeah.
And then basically trying, doing things in person was the other option. Yeah, and then it's the incentives thing comes up. Yeah, that literally comes up every session.
Yeah, it's a fun argument with lots of ethics committees.
And they differ. That's the thing. There's such a value.
Yeah, and it's kind of like we even did it with Red Tractor. They questioned me and said, "Well, we don't think we should pay farming influencers for promoting Red Tractor." And I said, "Oh, do you all work? Are you all volunteers then?" I didn't realise.
Yeah, exactly.
And they went, "Well, no, we're not volunteers." I said, "Well, why are you asking farmers to do it and promote? Your job is to promote, and you're getting paid to do it. Why shouldn't farmers?" Wow.
Yeah, there's a confusion between bribery and incentive, isn't it? We're not bribing them for answers, but incentivising them to.
Yeah, that's why we pitch it as we pay £1 a minute, because that's what that level of technical expertise is on the open market. That's what other professionals, when we work along the supply chain, get paid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah,
but also we do also hide it in recruitment fees. If they don't want to say it, then it depends how transparent you have to be.
Yeah,
there are quite a few that we don't. We deliberately say for certain projects we don't pay incentives because we think it's unethical. So if it's charity, if it's got a reason why it's unethical to pay incentives, then farmers are generally okay with it. But it's got to be a good reason, rather than, oh, the budget's not there to pay you guys, but the rest of us are going to get paid.
Yeah, not very good justification. Yeah, brilliant. Okay, right, welcome back everybody. hopefully you've had plenty of time with Lisa's warped timings of the world. Right, we'll go around each group, and I'm just going to have to rely on you volunteering your services here. So you've got 1 minute each to sort of share your pitch about why Farmer Matt, that's brother, should do your survey. Creative license welcome, and I'll roughly keep you to time. And then our guest speaker Claire will give you some constructive feedback to help you improve. Okay, so that's how we learn. Anyone brave enough to go first? Get it out of the way.
Go on then.
I won't be as horrible as Matt is, don't worry.
Go on, Nina. Brilliant. Over to you.
Okay, so just a bit of context. This is from a research project where we have tried to develop a robotic solution to plant virus diagnostics. So Farmer Matt, I will have checked first that his farm, his crops experience viruses, so that's why I'm targeting him. And I'm going to sort of phrase with the start with the context of the sorts of plant viruses that are problems for his crops and others, and how plant virus detection is really tricky, and molecular diagnostics are the kind of the gold standard. We're going to present them the video that we've created to show the approach that we've, how it can be easy for robotics to replicate certain human steps, and how it can actually be really tricky. And then the questionnaire is fairly short, it's fairly simple, asking them if this sort of solution would be something that they would consider to use on their farm in the future if the costs were sort of the right level. And if so, what would be the enablers? If not, why not? What's wrong with that? Yeah.
Okay, I think it's a strong position, but you're talking about the features, not the benefits. So think of it more as he's looked at that and he's going to go, well, I know it's a problem. You're telling me stuff I already know. He's a farmer. He's used to it. Be really, really mindful that knowledge, in terms of getting people to do stuff, educating them into doing it, is like way down the scale. 5 a day. How many of us eat 5 a day? Do we all know about 5 a day? So telling him how important it is and all of that sort of thing is great, but what you need to do is pitch. So you need to pitch it and say 20% of crops with farmers like you were lost to this disease last year. We want to change that, and we've got some new tech that we want to tell you about. Please continue with the survey to find out more. And you've straight away gone, oh, I don't want to lose 20%. I want to know what they're up to. I want to take part in this. So it's kind of like I was saying to Lisa earlier, it feels a bit like a clickbait, and it feels a bit like a Daily Mail headline. As long as you're not over-promising and under-delivering, because that will absolutely kill farmers faster than survey fatigue will. So don't promise that you're going to make policy changes and we're going to get this straight to the decision makers. The Prime Minister will be discussing this at question time. Don't make those kind of promises. But if you can use a bit of a hook or some bait to kind of draw them in quickly and get them interested, often the best way with farmers is risk. So that's financial risk or financial opportunity. So think about, you're not positioning a solution. You've got to tell them if they don't do it, what the problem's going to be for them.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess to me that's coming more as like selling, selling something to them. And I suppose from a research point of view, that's not where I've been in my head, but actually I need to sell the idea so they engage with it.
Think of it as a pitch. It's a pitch, and you've got about 4 seconds before they go, nah, not for me.
So this is very generous, 1 minute. Brilliant, thanks Nina. Excellent feedback. Who would like to go next to the Dragon's Lair?
I hope it's useful.
Oh, the keen beans are there. Go on, Sophie. Yes, better.
Hello, I'll go next. Okay, so let me unraise my hand. There we go. So we talked about a survey about the use of equipment for recording birds and analysing birds to identify them from their songs. And so it's in the hypothetical of this ask, I've made sure that Matt is interested in biodiversity performance across his farm and whether or not he's interested in working out his decision making around land use is leading to those better climate outputs. And as part of the ask, it's around surveying his use of audio moths versus the Merlin app. And as part of this, I've offered training in using audio moths so that he's then got some agency, some control over his own data collection in future, which he can then use for his own evidence based decision making, but also just submit to other bodies for SFIs and funding and stuff like that.
That's your 1 minute.
Yeah, that's as far as I got. Cool.
Oh, great.
Oh, good news is, and this is genuine, Matt's really into his wildlife and he's already doing the audio recordings. So if you were positioning that, what farmers are getting a little bit obsessed with biodiversity increases, and where you've got the survey, what you're trying to do will already be self-selecting, because it'll only really be interesting for farmers who have a genuine interest in that subject. Farmers that aren't looking to increase bird species or diversity, they're probably lost to you before you even get started. So you've got to think, okay, the guys who are interested in this, what's going to do it for them? And I can tell you from experience, these guys are super competitive about how well they're doing biodiversity on their farm. So while I wouldn't say ranking them, because they don't like to be ranked either, they don't want to go up against anybody, but how I would position that is find out if you're in the top 25% of farmers who are, by doing bird counts or by doing this audio sensing stuff, because you've straight away kind of laid a bit of a challenge down to guys who are going to respond well to a challenge and really believe that they're going to be doing the best. So you're kind of saying, benchmark yourself against. So are you doing as well as you think you are? And then there's also that the sense of pride that if they do come in the top, they're going to be talking about that for ages. So it's a great opportunity to then leverage that and get more traction with what you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
does that help?
That does, thank you. Making some notes.
The competitive farmers.
My dad and my brother are having competitions on who's got the most birds, and they've got wildlife cameras everywhere.
Yeah, cool.
On different farms.
Yes. Sophie, that's a great angle, isn't it?
Yeah, thank you. It's nice to know that farmers are super into this.
Oh, we've worked with the RSPCA, and we work with them and member farmers there, and you've just got to find them.
And
I think that's one of the. Oh, sorry. I was just going to say that's one of the key things is no two farmers are the same, and you've really got to think of them as they're not a farmer audience. They're so different and so diverse.
Which does make it a lot harder.
Yeah.
Right, we've got probably time for one more pitch and feedback, and then we'll open the floor to some wider questions for Claire. So if anyone's keen to go. There was 5 groups, I think. Lost track.
I'm happy to go.
Yeah, go on, Luke.
Lovely. So the hypothetical bit here is that Matt's doing a little bit of field veg, possibly in the organic space. And the pitch is that we believe we're building a robotic tool that enables sustainable practices that are going to help really cut the pain of climate variability that's really punishing farmers' bottom lines. But farmers know their fields best. They know their systems best. So having their input, having his input in, could really make sure that the tool is both viable, practical, and useful on the day-to-day for day-to-day on the field.
Nice, short, sweet.
So the only thing I didn't get there is, what do you want him to do?
Right. Yeah. I guess I'd say that answer the question help me understand his positioning on how he would adopt what he would automation would look like as he adopts it.
So you're looking for him to have an interview for sort of 30 minutes, 40 minutes, or is it?
Okay.
Is that what you'd need?
I don't know. I hadn't really thought about it. It's kind of more thinking about the pitch of like, in my head, I had like a questionnaire for them to answer, but or any form of communication with farmers is great. So, but I guess I didn't capture that in that pitch now.
So I think in that instance, I'd ask, is a survey the best way? Is what you need quantitative, or will you get more useful insight from something that's a bit more qual? So what I would say is I'd start a little bit earlier with some qual before you design quant, because I think that's quite a broad research topic, and you're going to get some very different responses and not necessarily useful data out of it. So I'd go 10 farmers and ask them to take you on a crop walk. And I would do a transcribed Teams call or a FaceTime, or if their signal's terrible, record it for you and walk the field and do a 10-minute crop walk. And then you get that video back.
That's beautiful. Lovely. Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, so Luke, for you, being sort of engineering based and like sort of digital expert, you probably want to look at upskilling in more qualitative research methods and the collecting like quality data, analysing that, because there's lots of like cool software programs you can use to help you as well, which would be fit your strengths.
And don't underestimate farmers. Some of the ones I've spoken to, they've got Omnia. I don't know if you come across that as a software product. So they've got Omnia, they've integrated the Omnia API with ChatGPT API, uploaded Google Maps into it so that they're doing all the lat and long for that particular field, integrated with all the Omnia data that's come from it, and they're treating it like an agronomist. And it's kind of, he'll be like, right, I'm at this position, this is what I'm seeing, take a photo, upload that, what should I do? I think I should do this, critique my approach. So there's loads of stuff going on that's just, they're doing it themselves without, one of them was uploaded something to Twitter the other day, and I ended up, University of Leeds was like, no one's doing that, can we please talk to you about your trial? Because he was just doing it to see.
Thanks, Harry. Yeah, that segues quite nicely into the little point I was going to make. If you're wanting to understand a bit more about behaviours or understanding why around decision making and the how, then this does start pushing you towards maybe more qualitative research approaches, whether it's like not autoethnography, but ethnography, where you're observing how things are getting used on farm or activities on farm, or interviews, focus groups where you just discuss in depth. And I would say this to quite a lot of my students as well. There's lots of free text requests on surveys. I'm like, oh god, maybe a survey isn't the best format, but if it's majority free text.
And on that, if it's behavioural, there is probably a framework that's tried, tested, and academically proven. So rather than asking, if you ask somebody how they behave, they won't tell you the answer. They'll lie about 70% of the time because of social biasing and all sorts of things that come into that. So if you can use a tried and tested framework with understanding, whether it's theory of planned behaviour, a combi analysis, there's some interesting ones out there. And if anyone does want to talk about behavioural stuff in agriculture, then I think David Rose is your go-to at Harper. But equally, I also have a postgrad in behavioural science. So if anyone wants to talk about it, more than happy to.
I just posted a link, something I came across recently about sort of adoption of innovations. There's we've got a few criticisms of it, but it's actually quite a cool online tool to use around something you might have heard of. Before I just wrap up, we've got time for one burning question for Claire, because I know we didn't get to answer all of them. So if anyone wants to jump in there before she goes.
Lots of people were asking about incentives, and it's probably, given that you guys are all academics, it might be worth mentioning that we are, as of next year, partnering with the Agricultural Universities Council, and we've checked with our farmers on the panel and said that we know that there's a lot of really valuable academic research that we can't pay incentives for. So we're going to be starting a programme where I know that lots of people put stuff on Farming Forum and things like that, and it doesn't necessarily get the traction you want. We're going to be choosing 10 per quarter, where research that we think is well designed, really appeals, and the researcher behind it is committed to making sure farmers are involved in that process. So that'll be going out as a quarterly newsletter of academic excellence research. We'll have a form on our website that you can apply and say why you think your research should get one of those 10 slots. And if we think it's a good fit for our farmers, we'll share it with them.
That sounds amazing. Yeah, Claire, if you let us know. I know it's just the AUC people, won't it be initially?
Yes, so it'll be.
Yeah.
But if it's good research and it's well designed and it's going to appeal to lots of farmers, then I get to decide. So
yeah, and if it comes, because RAU is part of the AUC amongst a few others, including like Harper who are here, and so if you guys are an institution that are not AUC, you can send it via us. Maybe that could get.
Yeah, I mean it'll be a form on the website. It's something that we're teaming up with, and you don't have to be at the Agricultural Universities Council. It was just sort of a way to let students know that we're going to be doing it.
Okay.
If you do have any questions, I've just stuck my email in the chat. It's Farming Forum. It's the largest used farmer forum in the UK.
Yeah, so interesting.
Don't stick your head too far above the parapet.
Right, just to wrap up, next. Firstly, thank you so much, Claire, for sharing your insight and wisdom. That's been really lovely, and I'm sure we'll facilitate connections and people be in touch, etc. And those of you who are coming to January residency on food systems and storytelling, Claire's going to be joining us. That's very exciting. Claire will be in touch about the details. And then next steps in Bridging Fields, we've got a final online workshop of the year on the Thursday, the 18th of December. Similar timings. This is all about Indigenous knowledge, value of it, acknowledging it, respecting it. And we've got some guest speakers representing work from Tanzania, Scotland, and Aotearoa, New Zealand. We're going to be planning some networking events. This is much of a request from you guys. We'll have like an internal community networking event, and I'm going to work with a couple of organisations in farming to have a bit of a networking event that way. But in the interest of not being extractive, have to be a bit of a sensitive balance for involving farmers. Emmanuel's going to be at the Oxford Farming Conference or Oxford Rural Farming Conference. Can't remember which one, but there'll be a bit of a get together there if you're going. And we're holding a couple of events next year, one-day workshops at Harper and Exeter, and there'll be a couple more announced as soon as we pin down the dates. So these are kind of for people who are at these institutions and local to them, and they're quite tailored to these institutions. But I thought I'd just flag those up for you. And then we've got our residency dates that I keep sharing. So we haven't opened registration for the March, June or September ones yet. But if you're really keen, just make sure you bookmark those dates. And then keep an eye out on your emails, basically. But if in doubt, just email me or Emmanuel. We'll eventually get back to you. Been a bit busy recently, so apologies if I'm a bit slow. But yeah, thank you so much for your time and energy. Lovely to see you all again. See you next time. Bye.
Thanks a lot.